Welcome back to Season 5 of Porcelain Peak, a strange and scary podcast featuring Chap Talk, trivia, and just deep dive main discussions into the odd and unusual.
Deep.
This week, we're going to share some news about the Ghost with the Most. And I got a question I want to propose you guys.
Okay.
And then we're
I'm
gonna
already in a relationship, but
we have a trivia, and then we're going to talk about Princess Mononoke. So before we do that, I fucked up, and I'm one of your hosts, Tone, and I'm joined by
John.
And
Internet darling Anthony, I feel like you should just intro yourself like that every week. I fucked up. I'm your I'm your host, Tone.
Unrelated to the podcast, I fucked up.
I also wanted to, while we're on the subject of intros, I did want to kind of throw this out to the audience. Let me know how you feel about Internet Daddy. So I was thinking maybe going forward, I would be your Internet Daddy.
I can tell you how I feel about it. Not good.
We're going to Chop Talk now. We'll see you there.
Why don't you take an axe and chop it open?
Before we dive into the news and my little question, how are you fellas doing?
I've been on a 24-hour Tears of the Kingdom bender.
Yeah.
So that I'm great, fantastic.
How long does that have to go on before we need to get you guys help?
I mean, I played Breath of the Wild for the last 5 years, so.
Oh, okay, and you've functioned all right. Okay, I just wanted to know what to
this.
Yeah. I just wanted to know if there are any signs I should look out for that you guys need an extraction team to come out and peel you off the fucking couch.
Yeah, we got a nerd at 12 o'clock. Right on. How are you? Feeling better? You were a little down?
Yeah, so anyone who has listened or watched this show long enough knows that these guys tend to be the ones that catch the illnesses, and I'm the one that gets away scot-free. Well, karma finally came back around and kicked me right in my asshole. And so I've been bedridden sick for the past couple days, and the shittiest part about that is
The shitting.
you would think okay, well, I'm at home, so at least this will give me the opportunity to watch a bunch of movies or something. But when you're sick like that, your brain just doesn't want to put any effort into anything.
Foggy.
Yeah. So
No, sleepy, please. Just sleepy.
Yeah.
so I just ended up watching. I did do a rewatch of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which I hadn't seen in a few years, and that got me into. I think now that I've completed my Wes Anderson road to Asteroid City, I think I might do a Gondry.
Ooh.
Go through his
He has stuff.
filmography. There's a lot of stuff I haven't seen.
Yeah.
And stuff that he did,
stuff,
foreign
too,
stuff
yeah.
that I haven't seen from his. But yeah, I feel good, and I'm ready to talk about some news.
Yeah. Well, do you want to do the question or do you want to do the news?
Okay, let's do the question.
So,
Quebun.
watching this movie, and a lot of these movies, they're masterpieces. I don't think that that's arguable, really. Do you think that movies should be separated between Best Picture and Best Animated Picture? And I know sometimes there's crossover. I think Toy Story 3 was also nominated for Best Picture, and maybe Pinocchio was both this last year. But I was thinking about it, right? And I feel like maybe a case could be made that they could be separate, but at the same time, stuff like Avatar gets nominated, and that basically is just an animated movie. You know what I mean? But it's where do you guys feel on that separation?
So I feel like the reason why we have a Best Animated Feature category in all the awards ceremonies now is that for so many years, mainstream Hollywood has considered animated films to be a child thing and don't give them the credit that they deserve, because there are some very, very fantastic animated films
Both for adults and for children.
Yes, that could easily have been nominated for standard Best Picture, or were better than some of the films that were there, or
I think this
were successful.
Mononoke was nominated for an Oscar, I think.
It was supposed to be.
Sorry,
they put it forward for Best Foreign Film, I think, and it didn't end up getting the nomination. But
I am personally glad that the category exists, because I think there are a lot of movies that wouldn't get talked about because they're too kiddish or whatever.
Okay.
But I also think that door should always be open, and that there should be more representation for animation in the standard Best Picture categories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. I think it's tough because You're totally right. And I actually just watched I watched an interview with I think it's Gendy Tartakovsky, the guy who did Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack.
Yeah.
And he is an amazing artist and obviously has been doing animation for like 30 years. And he was talking about how like just people for whatever reason have just always, they see something as animated and they go, that's a cartoon for kids, and they want to put it in that bucket. But things like Samurai Jack, like that didn't appeal to me as a kid, but as an adult, I love it. It's very, there's a lot of mature themes and adult stuff going on in that. And
we're gonna talk about Princess Mononoke here shortly, but for a movie that is beautiful and that could easily be aimed towards children, it also is very violent in places. Like, I don't want to watch children like get their head, like people like have children watch people get their heads cut off and shit.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But then it's like you see all these movies, and it's like, yeah, they have people in them, but like Avatar is an animated movie.
Well, and that's a whole.
I know that's
a whole other thing that needs to be figured out too, because Disney is remaking all of these movies, calling them live action remakes of their movies, and
there's nothing.
Yeah, in some cases, it's like The Jungle Book, where they have one human person, and then everything else around them, including the environment, is completely computer generated, done by what you would maybe called something different, but they are computer animators. They are animators who are animating that stuff and animating the characters in basically in a different and sometimes more advanced way than you would pen to paper, but it's a lot of the same concepts and a lot of the same kind of people. So that needs to be figured out, is like, how are they able to consider those live action when they are basically fully animated? And is it the difference between a computer and pen and paper? Because that's not fair either, because most anime these days and most animated movies are done on computers. Mm-hmm. And while they may look hand-drawn, for the most part, they are not. But then you go back to something like Mononoke, which we'll be talking about today, and that movie is hundreds of thousands of individual hand-drawn, hand-painted cells, and the amount of fucking work that goes into that, there is no excuse for why something like that should not be considered on the same level as something like an Avatar in terms of the amount of work that goes into it and the amount of thought. And you look at the animated features category, and I feel like a lot of the time, things like, Turning Red was good, Sea Beast was okay.
It's always Pixar.
Well, they pad that category, I feel like, because to me there aren't always enough animated features that are worthy of being in Oscar contention, but because they don't want to let them bleed over into the other categories, they feel like they have to pad this out and show like, look, we're showing a bunch of love for animation, and that's great for all those animators, but I just really think that those barriers need to somehow be broken down. And then that's also going to, that goes into, well, what about foreign films? We've now seen foreign films crossing over from winning just Best International to winning International and Best Picture. And when do we start just going like, okay, well, how many of these barriers do we break down before we have to completely restructure the way that we even think about these categories? And
I think the benefit of it, like what you were saying, is that it does open your eyes to more movies in those categories. So yeah, Parasite, maybe it's nominated for Best Picture, but then people that might not have checked it out because of this foreign category or this animated category now have a list of like 4 other movies that they might be interested in.
Yeah.
So I feel like if it shines the spotlight, yeah, it's cool, but I don't think that it should be limiting, is like what you're saying. Like maybe there should be some different way to categorize these things.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any kind of rule that says if you're nominated in Best Animated Feature that you cannot also be in Best International and Best Picture. And really, I think that just means, while Best Picture I feel like is already a bloated category, having 10 nominees usually, if they need to expand that to have 20 nominees and have them be from all ranges of film, from international to animated to whatever, then do that if it means showcasing movies that deserve to be in that Best Picture, because really at the end of the day, that's the award that people really care about outside of like the acting awards.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people who watch are genuinely just like, okay, let's get past this other shit. I love all of the technical categories because we go, oh, I remember the sound in that movie and it's standing out and I think it should win, or the visual effects. They're always adding more categories. I mean, not always, but they've added a lot more categories since the beginning. Like you said, there was a time when animated feature didn't even exist as a category. So
and a lot of the technical Oscars didn't exist too.
I feel like then you have to ask yourself the question, like, should voice actors be able to be nominated for
Also, yes.
Best Actor? Should that be a separate category? Then we talked about mocap, like stuff with Planet of the Apes. Like, those performances are fucking fantastic.
Well, I mean, and I was getting around to mocap because mocap is heavily used
Mocap, no problems.
in the video game space.
Right.
No one's claiming that video games are live action games. Like, it's all rotoscoping of art done over actual actors who are doing the motion and speaking the lines, like something like The Last of Us. That's literally Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker in a room covered in head to toe in those weird body condom things with little balls all over them.
Like A Scanner Darkly. Right?
Yeah, and it's just art superimposed over the top of them, but the expressions, the dialogue are all an actor's performance.
The delivery.
Yes. And that is where the value is. Like, if you have some weirdo off the street giving subpar delivery to those lines, they don't have the same weight or impact.
Right.
So, I mean, those acting performances still have just as much value as somebody who gets to physically be in their scenes as well.
Yeah, I just think that there's so many players that go into making any sort of movie that there's always going to be people that are not represented at a show like the Oscars, which is why I as much as I enjoy watching the Oscars, I think most people, including myself, agree it's not the end all be all and of movies and decisions about what's good and what's not. And if there are some people who are like, fuck the Oscars, I don't care what they have to say, especially horror fans, because I mean, really, that we could have a whole discussion about, well, what about horror, and the fact that horror has, outside of like Get Out and The Exorcist, has basically never had any representation.
And when they do, it's always like, well, it's a thriller, or it's psychological.
Or Silence of the Lambs, where it's like, to me, that's a fucked up horror movie. But
I mean, if you look at the performances and the directing and something like Hereditary, like, that definitely deserved that year to be up on the stage with those same people.
Yeah, but I definitely think that
or Egger stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if not the content, like the directing, like that motherfucker knows what he's doing. You know what I mean? Or the writing.
Yeah. But to answer your original question, because now I'm like, we could get into a whole discussion about the different kinds of art and how art can be anything and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I do think that still today, even by big studio heads like David Zaslav at Warner Brothers, who basically was like, we are going to get rid of a bunch of our animated programming because only kids watch animated stuff and adults are not going to be interested. They're so out of touch with the actual audience. When you look at something like, so Sony doesn't have their own dedicated streaming service, but what they did do is they bought Crunchyroll.
Oh.
And that has done gangbusters for them because
I think they had Crackle. Was that Sony too?
Yeah, and I think they like rolled Crackle into something else. But Crunchyroll is like their main thing, and it's doing really well for them because anime has had a huge explosion in popularity over the past, even more in the past 5 years, and that's why we've seen things like Your Name and stuff like actually showing in theaters, and you see these Miyazaki, weeks of Studio Ghibli movies and all that. So there's a lot of respect for it, and people are hungry for it. And I think that it's just these execs and these people in the academy who, for whatever reason, are just like, no, because then if I vote for that thing, then everybody's going to think that I'm a poo-poo baby who pees in my poo-poo diaper. And it's like,
it's like you're an old white person. You already are pee-pee and poo-poo in your diaper.
Great example. Like, sure, maybe there's some stuff in there that could appeal to children, but it's beautifully animated, and it's just a good movie.
Yeah. And it's like, and you take somebody like Scorsese and say, okay, sit down and make Princess Mononoke for me. He'd never in a million years be able to pull it off. And it's because it's like, it doesn't mean that he's not a very fucking talented, master director, but so is Miyazaki.
Tread lightly, bro.
I understand exactly where
just
it's
in
coming
different
from.
lanes. Like, it's just because that's how all art is, like even painting. It's like, I was talking to the guy at the muralist that I talked to today. I was like, your work is fucking amazing, and I don't even know the first thing about how you pull it off.
Right.
Doesn't mean we're not both talented artists. It just means we're in different lanes, and both of our bodies of work are equally as valid. We just do it in different ways, and and so I think that's just, it's a big thing. It's a big discussion about art in general. But yeah, I think animation deserves its time in the spotlight. I hope that it gets more acclaim, and I mean, with things like Pinocchio winning, that made
technically, like, that shit is real. I mean, real. You know what I mean? Like that is a physical thing, as much as like an actor is a physical thing. So it's like that's like you know what I mean? Like
blood,
the lines
sweat,
are
and
blurred.
tears.
Yeah,
Literally. And stop motion is one of those things where like people just don't make it because it doesn't get any recognition and
for the level of effort that's required.
Yeah,
to make
so
it
I'm
work.
hoping that it's like, unfortunately, a lot of the time, in order for us to see more recognition, there's got to be some film that breaks the mold and go, like Pinocchio, and says, okay, here's a stop motion movie that's now won in its category. Hopefully that means we will be getting more stop motion stuff in the future because people go, okay, this is actually, well, the studio heads go, okay, because that's how they're going to make their decisions is go, okay, this won a bunch of awards during its awards circuit. Mm-hmm. It made a bunch of money, through subscriptions or whatever it was. Cool. Now we'll put a bunch of money into future stop motion projects. Same with animated stuff. They'll be like, okay, well, if it wins enough awards and we see that it's going to make us money, then we'll put we'll put more money into it.
It's all a money game. Kind of sad. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we want to dive into some news.
Yeah. Speaking of the money game,
the juice
is
loose.
It's about to be loose. So I've been talking in previous weeks about how I didn't want to go too deep into whether or not this Beetlejuice 2 shit was happening because we've been hearing the same thing over and over again. Well, this is the furthest that we've ever gotten into its real territory. We have an official release for it, which is September of 2024 for Beetlejuice 2. We also have a short list of confirmed cast members. So Michael Keaton is coming back as the Juice. Winona Ryder is coming back as Lydia. Jenna Ortega is coming in as Lydia's daughter. We also have Monica Bellucci coming in as, you might know her as Persephone from the Matrix movies, the French dude's attractive lady friend. She is coming in as Beetlejuice's wife, so he got lucky at some point. Or she got unlucky. And then also Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah.
So far has been confirmed. And
I hope they get Gina.
Yeah. I
don't know what capacity, but I don't know how you.
So for sure, Jeffrey Jones won't be coming back because he's a pedophile.
Oh, is that Lydia's dad in the?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then
I did not know that.
Alec Baldwin, I would assume, is probably not going to be coming back. I don't think he would be interested in the first place.
Yeah.
But there's that whole thing with him. But it looks like it's actually moving forward. They're casting people. It's supposed to start filming
crazy
like next month. So we may be actually getting it. That whether or not you're excited about that, that's up to you.
I wonder if this has anything to do with the musical and it gaining traction because it's pretty popular and it's fucking great. So
yeah, I think also just Wednesday did gangbusters on Netflix, and so they're like, oh, Tim Burton still has some sort of appeal. I think in reality that was Jenna Ortega has a lot of appeal right now, and so they're like, let's just take Tim Burton and Jenna Ortega
and juice them up.
They're
on the juice.
Mm-hmm.
But for people who have been following the ongoing odyssey of shows coming out and being immediately canceled before they've had time to even develop or have anything happen with them, the CW has already canceled the Winchesters, which was the spin-off prequel thing for Supernatural. It's just really interesting to see that something like Supernatural came around at a time where the model was, let's do 20-something episode seasons and let this show run for 15 seasons. Now the model is like the complete opposite of that. It's how, what's the shortest amount of episodes we can do in a season so we can pay the least to the writers. Go back to last week's episode and listen to our discussion on the writers' strike. But so yeah, the shortest amount of episodes so we can pay people the least, and let's not greenlight anything until we have astronomical secret numbers that we're going based off of with viewership. But the CW is also, like pretty much every other channel or service right now, their big new plan is to pivot away from scripted television into strictly reality television. So they're going to become just like MTV, which is I saw Dan Merle did a breakdown yesterday of what MTV's schedule looks like. It's literally ridiculousness for about 12 hours of the day.
Is it really?
Yeah. And then they have a couple hours.
That shit's still on?
Yeah, then they have like 4 hours of Catfish, and then I think he said there's something like 3 hours of original programming, and then the rest is all just Ridiculousness and Catfish.
So Ridiculousness, 5 days a week releases 2 hours of new content that's never been released.
What?
Yeah. 2 hours
Well, it's because all he does is just watch video. Like, other people are making his show for him. He just has to stand in front of a screen and watch internet videos and go, that was funny, that was embarrassing.
There's a Patrick Cece video that I will send you later, and I'll also put in the notes to this. That's about the monopoly that Rob Dyrdek created around MTV and how
I saw this video. It's pretty crazy.
It's a very good video.
Yeah, he made.
I mean, I used to love Robin Big back in the day.
I don't have
Fantasy
anything.
Factory is fucking.
I don't have anything
Yeah.
against him because I mean, it seems
that
to
bag.
me like he got the bag. Yeah,
Yeah.
like he fucked like. MTV fucked themselves by basically giving him all of this, basically saying like, yeah, you can just take over our channel.
That's wild. But if people are watching it,
Yeah.
like you said,
My
it's about
dad
the
my
money.
dad watches Ridiculousness like every day.
I used to love to watch it when I was sick.
It's like the same thing with like the soup, right? Or
Talk Soup or whatever.
and
Yeah.
then like Tosh.0, right? Isn't that kind of all the same shit?
Yeah, it's similar.
Which is a dude standing in front of a screen watching other people's videos.
Yeah, I think Joel McHale on The Soup was like the first of those kind of things, and then Tosh like really blew that up
Yeah.
and became really famous with it. So yeah, if you're a fan of Supernatural and you were into that Winchester show,
I don't even think, friend of the podcast, Ashley, the intern, watched it, and she's like a diehard Supernatural fan.
from what I read, also that this doesn't necessarily mean it's going away forever. It'll get shopped around to other networks, and I'm sure that Netflix will potentially pick it up because they love wasting money. But speaking of things that I don't know, I have no segue for this. But Dan Stevens, I love Dan Stevens. I'm a big fan. I'll tie this back to when we were talking about live action Disney remakes because he played the Beast in that.
All right. Speaking of live action
Stevens.
Disney remakes,
Dan
Dan Stevens.
has now joined the cast of the untitled Universal Monsters movie that Radio Silence is making. Radio Silence are the guys that were behind the last two Scream movies. And You're Next. That's what they call their little team. So far, we don't know what it's supposed to be about. Originally, it was tentatively titled Dracula's Daughter, and it is starring Melissa Barrera, who's the main character from the most recent Scream movies. I like her.
Carpenter,
I like Dan
Sam
Stevens.
Carpenter?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested in whatever this is. But yeah, they're doing some sort of Universal Monsters movie. So
Right on. Whatever happened to Leigh Whannell? Wasn't he supposed to do something?
he was supposed to do that. Then there was talk about him doing an Escape from New York, and now I think he's working on something that I do not give two shits about. But
Worry about it later.
Yeah.
Any other
Yeah.
news?
What would you say? What did you just say to me?
Any other news?
Oh yeah, there is news.
All right. More news.
But speaking of directors that we like, and we're always wondering what they're doing next, Flanagan, that busy motherfucker.
I saw this one
What?
too. Yeah.
He is
else?
directing another Stephen King adaptation.
Movie?
Yeah, it's called The Life of Chuck.
Okay.
It is from one of Stephen King's short story
stories.
collections.
Oh.
And it is currently starring Tom Hiddleston and Mark Hamill.
Okay.
And from what I read of the premise of the story, it is...
Mark Hamill's got another new movie coming out.
Yeah, he's a very busy man, too. It is the story of a man, like, at three different points in his life, starting from when he dies from cancer at, like, 39, and then working backwards to, like, the beginning of his life in different stages. Yeah, so I'm really interested to see how that turns out. But, I mean, you can't go wrong with Flanagan and Stephen King. That's, like, one of the most perfect
That's my bread and butter.
team-ups. Yeah, I would say outside of maybe, like, Frank Darabont has done some of the best King stuff. But yeah, I'm really excited for that. Not much information beyond that. I'm still wondering when the hell we're getting House of Usher.
Hopefully soon.
I would assume that was wrapped before the strike happened. I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a while, so I think
Been
it's
insane.
probably done.
Well, also something that I learned that I didn't really know about is that like it's causing some trouble because with shows that were technically like already in development and the writing was finished, because as long as the strike is happening, that you can't do rewrites. So if they need to change anything or do any rewrites, basically they're not allowed to touch anything. So a lot of these productions are being put on hold just because they're like, I can't make this the best that I could make it because
Like I
can't
want to have a writer on staff.
Yeah,
to
and if you're the
look at it.
showrunner and the writer, like Tony Gilroy, they're saying you can't even be on set. So some shows, I think House of the Dragon season 2 potentially is going to be going into production without its showrunner
My God.
so that they can get it into production on schedule. Stranger Things was put on hold because they were in the stage of finishing up scripts on that. And so the entire like release strategy and marketing strategy around the next season of Stranger Things is probably going to be thrown way out of whack. And it also means that if they're not finished filming, those kids are going to continue to get old as fuck.
Be way too old.
Yeah, Millie Bobby Brown's going to have a big ass beard.
My name is 11, and I am
A grandma.
14 years old.
I'm a grandmother. Watch my magic powers. And then the
Exactly how my grandma said.
the only other bit of interesting news that I had is that there's a teaser trailer that I haven't checked out yet, but it is from Yorgos Lanthimos, who did Killing of a Sacred Deer.
I saw this too.
Dogtooth. He is doing a movie called Poor Things, which is based on a novel that is itself a unique spin on the Frankenstein story.
Okay.
And it stars Emma Stone and Willem Dafoe. From the little picture I've seen, Willem Dafoe's got a fucked up, creepy looking face. So
How's he look in the movie?
So I've seen some of the trailer for this, and I didn't want to know more, but I was scrolling through Twitter, and I just got sucked in to no audio, just how crazy the visuals look. I mean, it's Yorgos, so we know that it's going to be a very well realized little universe.
Yeah, he's gonna go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I've loved all of his movies that I've seen, and it'll be cool to see Emma Stone in something. It feels like it's been a while since she was in anything halfway interesting. And then the last bit, this is just fun, something that I saw earlier. But I guess we're getting a Texas Chainsaw Massacre video game coming up. I'm sure going to be the same as the Evil Dead one and all of these other games,
the asymmetrical,
basically Dead by Daylight, just with a new skin. New skin. So the developers of that game, in the meantime, to whet our whistles, they have put up a Lo-Fi Leatherface YouTube channel that is a riff on the lo-fi hip-hop beats to study to. But it is Leatherface in his kitchen just chopping up some meat to some lo-fi beats. So if you need some lo-fi beats to beat your meat, then, then go check it out. I put it on in the background at work today, and I told my boss and my coworker in our morning meeting, I was like, hey, if you guys are interested, there's a lo-fi hip-hop Leatherface. And they were like, you're a very unique person. They were like, only you. But yeah, check that out. It's on YouTube. That's all I got for Chop Talk.
Right on. That'll wrap it up. We'll get started with that trivia.
Stop.
That Christmas house of wax, the fog, piranha. It's one of those, right? Right?
We're going to start it with some trivia. We're going to jump right in playing the horror movie edition of Trivial Pursuit. We're going to read a category, then go in a circle, reading to each other with me to John to Anthony, and Anthony back to me.
In typical fashion.
And our first category is...
Monster.
All right. John, what is the name of the comic relief character that is the housekeeper of Dr. Frankenstein in The Bride of Frankenstein? Housekeeper's name in The Bride of Frankenstein.
Igor.
The cleaning lady.
Dusts.
She dusts, and her name is Minnie.
Very specific, weird question. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the kind of game we're playing. I see how it is.
It's not really the game we're playing. It's the game that I'm playing. Because your question is, who directed Near Dark?
That is Catherine Deuce Bigelow.
Female gigolo.
Yeah, I like to call her the Deuce when we're hanging out.
That is correct.
OKD.
And then James Cameron shows up and I run away because I'm scared of him. Tone in Let Me In. Let Me In! From 2010. Owen and Abby communicate through the wall using what method?
Knox.
Knox? Like at the cabin?
My Knox.
It's a little bit more specific here.
Oh.
The knocks are...
I don't know, Morse code.
They are indeed Morse code. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It says through a glory hole.
Oh, God.
Matt Reeves decided to do a really strange adult twist on that whole thing.
Sweet. Anthony and I are on the board, and we're moving into...
Gore/disturbing.
John, at what university are the characters in Evil Dead from 81 students?
Boston College.
It is Michigan State University.
Boston College of being dumbasses.
of reading bad books.
I never learned to read.
Anthony, in Teeth from 2007, what possession does Don O'Keefe, who rhymes with,
Teeth.
throw off a cliff?
Well, since I recently found out that I think we watched this with your sister, and so I've completely blocked out the memory because of how awkward that is.
I thought it was fantastic.
What possession does she throw off a cliff?
My niece's birthday was last week.
Really?
Oh, Juniper. So if you're hearing this,
Oh, I did see the posts on Instagram.
then
Yeah.
happy birthday to you, lady.
Happy birthday, Junebug. Can I call her that? Is that okay?
Oh, you can call her anything you want.
She throws her, I don't know, her purity ring.
Purity ring is the correct answer.
Nice.
I was going to say penis.
Yeah, no, I was just like, I guess that would be on theme for the movie. I actually read, I didn't include this in our Chop Talk, but apparently there is a stage like musical version of Teeth coming
Right on.
for anybody who's interested in.
If they're not throwing like bloody dildos out into the audience, like, what are they really doing?
Not
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, Rocky Horror it up.
Yeah.
What was I watching recently where... Oh, Jennifer's Body, when Kyle Gallner tries to invite her to Rocky Horror Picture Show, and she's like, I don't like boxing movies. Tone, over how many years was Eraserhead from 1977 filmed? You got no excuses now, because we just covered it.
It was a long time.
It's been a long time, been a long time.
I don't remember. I know we talked about it. 8.
It was 5 years. What a surprise.
All right. So I got 1. Anthony, you got 2? Is that right?
So,
And
Yes,
John,
and
you
goose
got a
egg.
goose egg. And we're moving in 2.
Psychological.
brain worms.
John, what actor appeared in both The Invisible Man from 1933 and The Wolf Man from 1941?
Did I just say it not that long ago? Was it Claude Rains?
Oh, it's Claire Danes. Sorry, bud. Took break this week.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it is Claude Rains.
I mean, that's got to happen at least once every trivia. Is that
Yeah.
we just happen to be talking about what?
Well, that's what reminded me of that I was watching Homeland. Claude Rains reminded me of Homeland.
Yeah, free associating.
All over the mustache. Anthony, which character is spared by Kevin Wendell Crumb in Split from 2016? Casey
There we
Cook,
go.
Claire Benoit, or Marcia?
Well, I was gonna call her Cassie, but it's Casey Cook. She's got that alliterative comic book name, right?
It is Casey Cook. Yes.
Nice.
Played by Anya Taylor-Joy.
You're on fire.
He's heating up.
Yeah, I'm shocked because, like I said, my brain has not worked for the past couple days.
Brain worms.
It's reawakening. Rise from your grave. Tone, for your brainworms question, on what United Kingdom studio was The Descent from 2005 filmed?
Oh. United Kingdom Studio? I can't even.
Yeah, this is really a question where it's like you're lucky if you know what the names of any. The only reason I know this is because it's literally the only UK studio I know the name of. So,
That's probably where all the Harry Potter shit's at.
I don't think this will help you at all, but I know for sure that Star Wars did a lot of filming. The original Star Wars did a lot of filming here. I think most stuff that shoots in the UK films here, but
I can't think of anything. Universal London.
it is Pinewood Studios.
That does sound kind of familiar.
Yeah, I recognize
Pinewood,
the name. And
like
it's
a
the only
derby.
British studio that I know the name of.
All right, John and I tied at 1, and Anthony's sitting at 3. We're moving in 2.
Paranormal.
John in Insidious from 2010. What does Elise Rayner call the Purgatory Realm where Dalton Lambert is trapped?
She calls it my butthole.
I suffocated him with a fart.
You must astral project into my butthole, Mr. Lambert.
You must asshole project.
the further.
That is correct, sir. Actually, it's Claire Days.
Fuck.
That's my girlfriend telling me like not to be so short tempered and rude with people in social situations. You gotta stop asshole projecting, please.
Don't put that on him.
Anthony, in what year is The Blair Witch Project set? Movie comes out in 1999, but is not set in that year.
Is it 96?
It's 94.
Fuck.
Ooh, I was gonna say 7.
It was the dopest song I ever wrote in 94.
94.
Well, you win some, you lose some, huh? For your paranormal question, Tone, what is the first name of the child adopted by the Thorns in the Wild Thornberries? No. By the Thorns in The Omen from 1976.
Damien?
Whom it's all for.
Yeah.
I would assume so.
All for you, Damien.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to when we get some dumbass reboot legacy sequel to that.
Who knows?
Directed
All right.
by David Gordon Green.
Great. So now we both have 2,
Mm-hmm.
and Anthony's got 3,
Yep.
and we're moving into
Killer.
John and Peeping Tom from 1960. Mark Lewis conceals his knife in what camera accessory?
This should be easy because that's your autobiography, right?
Mm-hmm.
Peeping Tom?
They call
John.
Peeping John is what they call it.
That's what I'd be doing.
It's
The names were changed for the safety of the people involved.
it's in his tripod.
It is in his tripod.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of David
job.
Gordon Green, I read yesterday that apparently the first test screening of the new Exorcist movie bombed super fucking hard.
Really?
In
Cool.
New York where it showed. Yeah, but you know,
Neato.
it's one test screening in one city, so not highly indicative of what the actual strategy is going to be, but to me that says they're probably going to pull it back and do a bunch of reshoots to it and all that.
We shall see. Anthony, what director made Funny Games in 1997 and its shot-for-shot 2008 American remake?
Is it, I don't know if I have his name right, is it Michael Haneke?
Michael Haneke is the correct answer.
Nice. Nice
Nice.
pull.
You got to Haneke it to him. Tone, in
You still owe him a Haneke.
I've got a very dangerous bug. I really shouldn't be interacting that close. Tone, for your safety, obviously. In Friday the 13th from 1980, what character is revealed to be the killer?
Pamela
Wrong.
Voorhees.
It is Pamela Voorhees.
Jason. I've seen that movie. And it's Jason.
Well, then you'd know that it was his mother.
Whoa.
Hey, don't be besmirching our boy.
Roger B. Romero.
As we continue to besmirch.
All right. Well, John, you still got 2, and I have 3 now.
No, sir.
No,
I
you
got-
got 3.
Yeah.
We both have 3. And
Yeah.
Anthony has 4.
Yes.
Math
Dude,
is
thank
hard.
you. Great. We're moving into
International.
great. John, what is the profession of the crew that television reporter Angela Vidal is following at the start of Wreck?
They're the world-class wrecking crew.
It's Dr. Dre. Lorenzo. So she's following a group of people.
Yes. Is it
Like her show.
fire people?
Fire people.
Like firemen and women.
Yeah, no, it's golems. They're fire golems.
Everything changed when the fire people attacked.
This is firefighters.
Yeah, the fire department.
Which firefighters is gender neutral.
True. Very fair.
But fire people. I like fire people.
Hey, they're fire people, dog.
Fire people too, you know?
Anthony, Shudder from 2004 is a horror film from what country?
Japan.
It's Thailand.
You guys are tied now?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
This
You
could
could
be
call that Thailand.
You get a point that doesn't exist.
Thanks. It exists for me in my heart.
That's your John Brasher card.
So we're just gonna if you get this, you could tie.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
We can have a 3-way.
And then we could also tie.
Tone, for our three-way tie, what is the name of the American remake of Ju-on from 2002?
The Grudge.
It is indeed for a three-way tie. What's up?
All right.
Now we're going to take a short break for a little three-way celebration.
Yep, brown chicken, brown cow. That's going to wrap it up for trivia. Hope that you enjoyed that. It's not every day you get to see a three-way. So, lucky you. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to dive into talking about Princess Mononoke.
Good catch. Good catch.
Yeah.
Good save. Don't want to get sued. A menage a triv.
Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelain peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more. Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelain peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more.
Hey, you want to see something really scary?
Welcome back. We're going to dive into anime. Ashitaki! And we are talking about Princess Mononoke.
A goddamn classic.
So good. This is my first viewing, only my second Ghibli.
Ooh, you're a Ghibli virgin?
Yeah. Well, no, I think I watched Totoro with you.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I've seen.
Well, also a great... I mean, really, there isn't a bad Miyazaki movie. I haven't seen all of Ghibli's stuff because they do stuff outside of the stuff that Miyazaki was... And I think at this point, he's retired.
I think he did, but then I think he's coming back to do one more, from what I recently read.
That's so cool. We need to try to go see that in theaters if it is a theater thing. But yeah, Princess Mononoke, you want me to go into some of the details about this bad boy, bad girl?
Like Lydia.
Yeah, hit us with that background. You already said the director and writer.
Yeah, so Hayao Miyazaki, who, like you mentioned, is famous for things like My Neighbor Totoro, Spirited Away, this, lots of other fantastic movies. I'm a huge fan. I won't show it to you because...
Oh, and they mention Kiki's Delivery Service.
Kiki's Delivery Service.
And Knock at the Cabin.
Oh, yeah, they totally do.
That's her favorite movie. It's Gwen's favorite movie.
Yeah, I'm like, great choice, because Kiki's is also fantastic.
So did we pick another great pairing for our 2 episodes again?
I think we might be kind of psychic. Maybe a little psycho, but definitely a little psychic.
Anyway.
Yeah, so this is directed by Miyazaki. This came out in 1997. The quick little synopsis is, the fate of the world rests on the courage of one warrior. Ashitaki, a prince of the disappearing Amishi people, is cursed by a demonized boar god and must journey to the west to find a cure. Along the way, he encounters San, a young human woman fighting to protect the forest, and Lady Eboshi, who is trying to destroy it. Ashitaki must find a way to bring balance to this conflict. Japanese voice cast, which this movie is currently on HBO Max. If you watched it there, you probably watched it. You'll be watching it in the Japanese.
It has the option to choose.
Oh, it does.
It does.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So, but I'm glad that we watched it in different versions. I watched the English dub. You watched it in Japanese.
I watched the English dub as well.
And you watched the English dub as well. The Japanese voice cast is Yuji Matsuda as Ashitaki, Yuriko Ishida as San, Yuko Tanaka as Eboshi, Kaoru Tobayashi as Jacobo. And those are pretty much the main voice actors. In the English dub, Ashitaki is voiced by Billy Crudup. San is voiced by Claire Danes. Eboshi is voiced by Minnie Driver. And Gillian Anderson is the wolf god. And then Keith David plays the blind boar god. And there's a couple other recognizable voices in there. Billy Bob Thornton plays the like monk dude with the big ass wart thing on his face. So typically I would recommend, always watch the Japanese version of any of these anime movies, but with Studio Ghibli they always have like A-list really talented voice cast. I think Howl's Moving Castle has Christian Bale, and like they get big name voice actors to come in, and a lot of the time it's because these actors love these movies, like the Japanese versions, and really really wanted to work on them because there is something about these movies that really stands out above even some of the other anime stuff that we've talked about in terms of the amount of heart and the storytelling involved and everything. But yeah,
Heart
let's
containers even.
Hey, I think what stands out about this movie, especially for me specifically, and John and I talked a little bit about this last night, and even looking at it compared to the other two animated movies that we watched, there's not really like a central villain to this movie.
Everything is very gray.
It's a bunch of gray characters, right, who, like we talked about with Thanos, like, yeah, you can see their side to things. Or they all want things, they just don't know how far to push the things that they want before it becomes bad. And I think that that's, I mean, I know you say this, and you say that we say this all the time, but it's even more prevalent today, I think, with a lot of the themes that are presented in this movie. Like, expansion versus nature and that sort of thing. Like, that's a huge one. And I was just, like, blown away by that. And at the end of it, I was like, yeah, there's not really like a villain to root against. It's just all people trying to do what they think is right, and to some degree they are.
Yeah, and that was something where the world had gotten to a point by the time that Miyazaki wanted to make this movie. So he had the idea for Mononoke in like the 70s, and could never really fully realize how he wanted to tell the story. And after making things like Totoro and Kiki's, which are a lot more lighthearted. They're a lot more lighthearted and cute, and fun. He didn't feel like he lived in a world that really fit that kind of storytelling anymore. Basically, his quote roughly was, "I don't want to be lying to kids saying that everything is okay and happy, when in reality there are big problems that need to be that we need to face in the world." And obviously, the way that humans treat the environment was the big
environmentalism, sexism.
Yeah, there's that. There's the way that disabled people and people who are typically thought to be outcasts, which is what makes the Eboshi character one of the most interesting.
Which one is that?
She's the one who runs Irontown, and she is, kind of sort of who you could potentially consider to be the villain, but
she's also helping two vastly marginalized groups of people.
Yeah, so she's bringing in lepers, former sex workers, and people who are typically outcasts from other parts of society. She brings them into this town, and yes, it is to have them build this weaponry and they kind of are, in a way, still put into a class system in Irontown. But her entire goal is, they feel like they have been threatened by nature, so now they want to fight back to protect and develop their society, which is obviously, tale as old as time. In the beginning, I'm sure humans, they weren't going out of their way to try to fuck over the environment and destroy it. They're just like, how can I get this little piece of land and make it safe for the people who are here, and expand it as more and more people are born and this place grows. And then you have people who, like Ashitaki, who grew up in the forest, or like San, who grew up, in their tribes or in their forests, and everybody is kind of trying to protect their own little realm of the planet. And it's this whole, there's only room for a certain number of us, and
which we're dealing with now. Hard.
Yeah.
Was this your first time watching this one?
No. So I've seen this one. I've seen Totoro, and then I've seen Kiki's. And yeah, I love the scope of this film. Obviously, the countless hours and hours and hours of work that went into every single shot, the way that everything is drawn.
144,000 separate animation cells. This was the last animated movie, as according to the trivia here, to use traditional like plastic animation cells before they really started to push the computer generated animation and stuff.
Every scene in this movie is like a fucking painting.
It is hand painted. It's
it's like a painted, like it's something that I would hang on my wall.
Like a frame. Each frame could be a work of art.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the definition of the every frame a painting thing, where it's like, yeah, you could take any frame from this, and it made it really hard for me when I was putting together some of the social media stuff for next week to pick like what frame I wanted to use for our posts and stuff, because they're all so gorgeous and pretty iconic at this point. But do we want to stop while she... Okay, let's keep trucking along. But yeah, it's 144,000 animation cells. Miyazaki, when we talk about, I think a lot of people wonder how much involvement do directors of animated movies have in their films. And in this case, a whole heck of a lot. He personally went in and redrew at least 80,000 of these cells, like to his exactly how he wanted them.
Holy shit!
And yeah, almost all of it's hand painted. There are only a couple instances in this where they use a little bit of computer assistance, mostly for that scope that we were talking about when it's like rolling over hills and they want to show that depth and that distance. But and then on top of that, 550 separate colors in their palette that they used to hand paint this, and these are all palettes that they designed, for Ghibli movies, and that's why when you watch them, they're all so unique and colorful and gorgeous. Is these are all hand picked, formulated colors that go into these palettes.
Watching this on an OLED television with like the current technology in HDR, like everything just pops. The screen comes to life. And like I said, it looks beautiful. Watching it with the English actors, their voice acting performances are fantastic. I feel like they all play off of each other really well, and all of them, similar to the way their characters are, all feel like they're in the right for one reason or another. And I think that it works so well that you would potentially, based on the fact that you have made these actions and you've chosen to do these things that have protected this specific group, you would think that the person on the other side of you is doing everything wrong. Mm-hmm. And when it comes down to it, when someone at the center is able to see all of those sides and it's like, hey, you're all on the right. Like no one's doing anything wrong here. You guys don't want to hurt each other. And being able to kind of come together in the center.
Yeah, Ashitaki kind of ends up being like the mediator character, and he literally does at one point end up standing between the two, between San and between Eboshi, and saying like, you guys need to stop this. And I hadn't really thought about this before, but yeah, because he comes from a tribe that is very connected to nature, and they're kind of this hidden away secret tribe in the forest. He is kind of a blend of both worlds, where he's got that civilization of it and the family of his tribe and that community that he wants to protect, and then also he's got the connection to nature. And then you have San, who is very much like fuck all humans. So as much as she is just trying to protect nature, she's also going and killing innocent people and is very vicious and brutal. And then you have Eboshi, who is very much in the civilized industrial, and there's all of that commentary about how basically humanity has been in a constant struggle since the Industrial Revolution of like, how can we continue to advance technologically and industrially while everything that we do is continuing to destroy the environment? And you even have toward the, spoilers, if you haven't seen this, I would highly recommend stopping the episode now and going and watching this movie and coming back. But toward the end, when they finally do get the spirit and decapitate it, and it ends up like turning into this ooze that starts infecting the environment and destroying everything.
And also this just like larger than life, like almost like Lovecraftian beast.
Yeah, that like crazy night walker thing.
Yeah.
Super cool. But that reminds me of how, fossil fuels, it's like it's a natural thing that we are pulling up from the earth. It is from the earth.
To then use it in things that are destroying the
exactly.
earth.
So that's where it was like, it felt like, okay, that's like, even more commentary. It's literally like, okay, it's a perversion of the natural order, and it turns from being this benevolent, growing spirit that is helping the forest survive into this like, okay, well, fine, if you're going to misuse me, then I'm going to spread out and destroy everything.
Yeah.
And in the end, it kind of they give it its head back, and it basically ends up dying and handing over the reins of like, now you guys are in charge. You fucked it up. Now you got to figure out if you're going to continue to fuck it up, or if you're going to learn your lesson and turn things around.
Same as it's been the last 2 weeks.
Same as it ever was.
Couldn't be more poignant than it is now. I mean, the fact that they at the very last minute try to save this spirit who's been like overseeing the forest and trying to make sure that the balance is in place.
Yeah, and
like,
we can just put a Band-Aid on
protected.
it.
As soon they try to fix it at the very last moment, and they do, but it's already too late. I mean,
the dam's been broken.
Yeah, we're there. That's where we live right now.
The character, is it Kobayashi?
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, that's who provides the voice. Jikobo.
The monk guy.
Yeah. I thought his character was interesting in the fact that he is kind of a villain too, right? And he's the one that's like really pushing to kill this god, because that's his orders. But we aren't introduced to him that way, and I thought that was a cool choice where it's like we meet him and he helps our main character, and he seems like he's a pretty nice dude for the most part until it interferes with what he's doing. So I was like, oh, it's such a weird choice, and it kind of just had me think about how movies are made in general and how different things can be. Like, you get these foreign movies and it's completely different than the American sensibilities of what a movie should be.
I've always pictured that character as like a representation of like commercialism, and like that character is like the representation of a corporation. Like they're like in this film on behalf of the government to basically take out this creature. And they
still help the little guy.
Yes,
but they're still gonna fuck everything up.
Yeah, exactly.
Behind their back.
The act in the beginning of helping out the little guy is performative.
Yeah,
as compared to,
so?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, with the whole corporation like thought about it, where it's like that is very much a thing that corporations these days do, where they'll put on a show of helping out the marginalized group, or like wanting to say, oh, we're making all of our shit green for Earth Day, but we're not going to actually give to any charities that help the earth, and we're going to continue to pollute in our warehouses and all this shit. And it's like, it's just to put on a face to throw you off the scent that really they're all about like, let's harvest, nature until it's completely dead. But yeah, I think that is something where that's why I love watching Japanese, South Korean, basically just foreign film in general, because it tends to have more, in my opinion, realistic and nuanced characters. Because while American film has gotten to a point where audiences are more receptive to gray, ambiguous characters, because they now are used to things like Game of Thrones and stuff, or Succession, where everybody is somebody you hate but you love to hate them, and that whole sort of thing. We've been kind of stuck in this whole like Western mentality of there's the guy in the white hat and the guy in the black hat. One is the over the top villain and one is the pure, good guy. And whenever I watch, most foreign films, like something like Parasite, where it's like all of these characters in Parasite are committing crimes and they're doing the wrong thing and taking advantage of this family, but it's because they're in a position where they are just trying to feed their own and support their own, and the only way they're able to do that in the system that has fucked them over is to take advantage of people who are higher class. And
in that case, we're following what could be considered the villains, and rooting for them.
Yeah, and then you have later on in that movie the introduction of other characters who are potentially, even more villainous than our original characters, and then we're like, who are we rooting for? Or like, and it really feels like, I mean, that's how real life is. Like, you don't know day to day, who's on your side and who's not a lot of the time.
And to some people, you could be a villain. To other people, you could not be.
Yeah.
It's a lot about perspective here, and I think that's what really makes this movie stand out. I mean, because like last week we talked about Guardians. Yeah, we enjoyed the movie, but the villains were fucking lame.
Interestingly enough, we seem to be outliers in that.
I've seen
there has
the discourse.
Been a huge movement now to replace Jonathan Majors with the actor who played the High Evolutionary, and basically say that he was a variant and just recast him.
I mean,
I don't think the guy's a bad actor. He was in Peacemaker, and I thought he was great in that too. And I think if he had been given a little bit more to do as that character,
he's just one note.
Yeah, he would have shown. But
it's not the acting performance that's the problem. It's the writing of the character that's the problem.
Yeah,
but
anyway, but that's kind of the comparison that I think that we're trying to make overall, where it's like this is kind of the formula here for most of our movies, but it's very different, and I think it's still enjoyable, and it makes you really think about the movie way more.
And I think that's why Studio Ghibli movies end up being a lot of people's almost like awakening to the wonders and the world of animation, and because these movies they're very accessible, and they're gorgeous, and they're colorful, and there's cool action, and there's really great stories, but also there's that nuance that you don't really see in like your Saturday morning cartoons and stuff, and then in a lot of just live action American movies. And so I think that's why from very early on in Studio Ghibli's run, they've had a massive kind of underground fan base of people who are like, you've got to see Princess Mononoke. Oh, you like Avatar? you've got to watch Princess Mononoke. And James Cameron has cited Mononoke as one of the big.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure both, but
I forget what it was, but I was watching and I was like, Cameron just ripped some shit off.
He straight up said basically the entire Pandora ecosystem and the whole.
Right. Wasn't there something that was like the bioluminescence? Wasn't there some bioluminescence in this?
Yeah, like in the forest, you have like
that's
the
exactly
little
what I was
forest
thinking.
spirit things that are all like.
I don't
weird
even think
and
that
cute.
we've talked about the plot of this movie. So there's an evil boar, and then what's Ashitaka? Ashitaki
Yeah.
goes to
Ashitaka. Yeah.
Ashitaka goes to stop it, and then stumbles across these ironworks, and they're trying to make ammunition, but they're also trying to defend themselves from Princess Mononoke and her wolf family.
Yeah, so the reason he goes to find this place is because he gets cursed. So
Beast is cursed.
Yes.
so basically, what the curse does is it gives him kind of supernatural strength, but
Black arm. We have to talk about that later.
Yeah.
that's also something that I've seen like in things like Naruto, like even the cursed markings looking the same, and
Like
doing,
Sasuke, yeah.
Sasuke's curse and stuff, like very obviously inspired by this. But he gets a curse, and he's told in classic. Folklore fashion, go west, young man. Like, to see.
Get the fuck out of here and never come
Yeah, they're
back.
basically
Go to the
like,
Dear God Forest.
yeah, so he has to go and he has to try to, his plan is to appeal to the forest spirit to lift the curse so he can go back to his village. And he ends up getting wrapped up in this ironworks thing. And when he finally does meet San, or as she's called, she's only called Princess Mononoke by Eboshi, and I looked into it, and so Mononoke means vengeful spirit.
Yeah, it's not like it's not a name.
Yeah, so it seems like it's more just a moniker that they've given her because their impression is that she's like an evil spirit from the forest that's coming to fuck them up, as opposed to like a defender of the woods. But so her name is San, and basically he immediately falls in love with her and thinks that she's beautiful, and so he decides he needs to try to find a way to kind of like resolve this situation between them, partially because he needs to find the forest spirit and get this curse lifted. But
yes, at the same time they're trying to do that, but then Ironworks and then the Emperor, right, also want the Dear God dead, and they want its head. And they want to destroy these animals that are interfering with their plans to move forward.
Yeah, because they need to clear cut this forest in order to
they're
mine
also
the iron and do all the industrial stuff that they want to do.
While they're also trying to defend themselves from other humans. So, it's a lot going on.
Yeah, and you have the Wolf Clan, and then you have the Boar Clan, and the Boar Clan, basically the way
Led
that
by
you're...
Alborland.
Yeah. The way that you kind of turn into a demon in this is if you have enough kind of like hate and rage in your heart, you're at risk of being possessed by a demon. So the firstborn in the beginning of this, we find out later, he turned into a demon because he was attacked by Eboshi's.
He had like a gun, whatever.
Yeah,
it was a
ball.
He
stuck
shot,
inside of him.
and so he ends up turning into a demon, and then later the blind god. To me, it was very tragic when he starts turning into a demon. They're trying to stop him, and he is just like so distraught about what they've done, because by the time the blind boar god,
like, stop, calm yourself,
because he gets there and thinks, oh, like I got my whole team of boars around me, but in reality, it's like the covert samurai that are like disguising themselves as boars to sabotage him. It's very sad. But yeah, so Mononoke means vengeful spirit, and Ashitaka means brighter tomorrow. So I thought that was a cool little, obviously telling you kind of what their intentions are as characters. He's looking to make the world it's all about balance. That's kind of the whole theme of the movie, is how do all of these people with different viewpoints on how they should share the world and who should get what resources and blah 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 blah, how do they all find balance as people? And then on top of that, there are these actual folklore spirits and gods in the woods and things that are much more powerful than any of these people could possibly be, and it's that whole Prometheus, like, taking fire from the gods sort of thing, where it's like when you fuck with them, bad things are going to happen because they are much more powerful, and like you said, almost like Lovecraftian in terms of being beyond our comprehension. We don't ever really know what the forest spirit's intentions, or if it has any sort of personality or anything. It kind of just wanders through, and the closest we get to it actually having any sort of meaningful interaction with a character is when it heals Ashitaki his bullet wound, but doesn't heal his curse. So
He's like, I'll fix that bullet wound. This is cursed.
Yeah, you just never.
I ain't touching that.
Yeah, you never. Yeah, and you never really get a clear idea of what its intentions are, and so you can kind of understand why these people have different interpretations of what the forest spirit is trying to do. And yeah, it's sad because if you see it as just an allegory for what's actually going on in the world, it's tragic.
Yeah, I think another message that they're trying to put in here too is that women can contribute as much to society as men.
Yeah, that's something else that I think really stands out is that while you're introduced in the beginning with a male character, really the most active and meaningful characters are all women, including the wolf god who is with Princess Mononoke. In the Japanese version, I think is voiced by a man.
Yeah,
because
pretty sure.
I looked into it, and in Japanese culture, all wolf spirits, no matter what gender they are, have male voices, and all like feline cat spirits have female voices, no matter what gender they are. But to not confuse American audiences, they got Gillian Anderson to voice the wolf goddess or whatever in this. But
I think they may have pitch shifted her voice a little bit because she sounds a lot more menacing.
yeah, it's a lot deeper.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then in terms of the English language dialogue in this, it's not a one-to-one translation,
Obviously.
but it was actually written by Neil Gaiman.
Oh, I did hear that.
Yeah, he wrote the English adaptation, and basically he didn't want to just one-to-one translate it. He wanted to make it so that it would be enjoyable and understandable to an American audience. So there was a little like some terms that are changed just to make them more digestible to an American audience who maybe don't understand Japanese culture. But I do think that if you are interested in like the spirits in this, if pretty much all of the different types of spirits are all straight from like ancient Japanese folklore. So the big Nightwalker spirit thing is straight from Japanese culture. They have this whole thing about how these Nightwalker spirits will disguise themselves as mountain ranges during the day when they sleep, and then the whole mountain range will stand up and walk around at night.
So cool.
All of the little forest spirits are like an actual part of Japanese folklore about these little spirits that live in trees.
Yeah, cute and terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way their little like weird clicky heads go like yeah. And then
And we get a little bit at the end where kind of everything is destroyed and covered in this deer god goo, and then we get to see one of the spirit little dwellers pop up and be like, yeah, the forest is still alive, like it's still gonna thrive. So just
and to me that
be
was
careful.
To me it was kind of saying like, you know, my whole thing is what we're gonna end up doing if we continue to fuck with the earth is we're not gonna destroy the earth. We're going to kill ourselves because we're going to make it unsustainable for us. And then the earth's just going to move on. The earth was around for a fuck ton of time before us. It'll be around for a fuck ton of time after us. And really what this movie is saying is like, you guys got to figure out how bad you want to make your own situation with all of your infighting and greediness and all of that while you're here. Because at the end of the day, like, yeah, the ball's in your court right now, but the earth's going to do its own thing, and it's always going to come back, and it's always going to regrow, and
Yeah.
basically it's going to be up to you whether you want to treat it right and respect it while you're around, and get all the gifts and the beauty out of it.
GIFs.
All the gifs. Yeah. But we were talking a little bit earlier about how this may be kind of a strange sort of, these character types and all this might be kind of strange for an American audience. This movie was distributed by the Weinstein Company and Disney. So when Harvey Weinstein got the North American distribution rights for Mononoke, he insisted that the movie be cut down to a shorter length. And Miyazaki,
Was it?
No. So Miyazaki, because basically Weinstein said American audiences are going to hate this. They're not going to understand it. So you need to make it shorter and more digestible. Miyazaki was so upset because a previous movie that he had done, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, had basically been completely chopped to bits for its American re-release as Warriors of the Wind, that he basically just stormed out of Weinstein's office and refused to make any changes. And then several days later, Studio Ghibli producer Toshio Suzuki sent a katana sword to Weinstein's office that had no cuts etched into the blade. And so they ended up making no cuts to the movie.
That's like the most certified gangster shit I've
And
ever
later-
heard in my entire fucking life.
And later in an interview, when Miyazaki was asked about the incident, he simply said, "I defeated him."
That's tight.
He
And
probably
I'm
should
like,
have taken
yeah,
that sword and really defeated that motherfucker.
Yeah, but I'm like, damn, makes me. I mean, you can't get more badass than that, especially knowing the legitimate monster that Weinstein is. That they sent him a fucking sword and we're like, okay, you could chop up our movie, but we will kill you.
Yeah,
with a sword.
Baz Luhrmann would have sent a pistol that said no reshoots.
But originally, Weinstein wanted Tarantino to write the English dub of the movie, and Tarantino, in an act of sanity,
benevolence.
Was
I feel like he's made moves like that before, where he's like, "I'm not the right person for this."
Yeah, and he seems like he's the type who's like, but I know the right guy, and I know who can do this well, and I think Gaiman was a great choice.
Oh, Tarantino
recommended Gaiman as the right choice to translate it into English.
I would have loved to hear a couple of motherfuckers.
That would have been pretty awesome. And then I know we could go on forever about things that have taken inspiration from this movie. I think it would be fantastic if you wanted your ass to completely fall off from going numb to do some sort of movies about the environment that had a double feature between this and Avatar. I mean, you would be in the theater forever, but I think that would be pretty dope. But one in the IMDb trivia that stood out to me, and is relevant because her show is coming out soon. The creative team behind Star Wars: The Clone Wars has said that the character of San, or Princess Mononoke, was the main inspiration for Ahsoka. Said that there are a lot of similarities between their two characters, their spiritual connection to nature, and their fighting style and movements. They based pretty much all of Ahsoka's fighting style and movements off of Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, that's pretty tight.
Another cool thing that this movie does that, again, we don't see with typical American movies is with this ending. Very could have easily been a love story and ended like that, but instead the two characters that are probably in love to some degree, one goes and like, okay, I'm going to be with these people at the ironworks, and then you can go take care of nature. And I was like, oh shit, I was not expecting that. I really thought that they were going to end up together. And I mean, I guess we don't know what is going to happen, but at that time of the ending, they're separate.
Yeah, I was getting kind of nervous as I was wrapping up because I wasn't 100% sure how it ended. I couldn't remember. And it's a long enough movie that I think this might have been the first time that I've, from start to finish, sat down and watched it. I think most of the time I've just seen like the whole thing in chunks at friends' houses, and probably sometimes in Japanese and sometimes in English. So it was really nice to just sit down and actually understand what the fuck was going on. But I was nervous at the end when it started wrapping up that it seemed like it was going to go for like the everybody's happy and everything's great, because then Eboshi is like, yeah, I lost an arm, but like I learned a lesson. I'm going to like really try to do better with my society and my ironworks and everything. And I was like, is everybody going to suddenly go like, well, no, actually we made a mistake and we're going to be nice to nature? But I feel like it leaves everything on a more ambiguous note, even down to just having the little spirit pop up at the end and just being like, who knows where this will go? Or if you're assuming that this is supposed to be set in some sort of pseudo real era of ancient Japan, then you know where it's going to go, which is Japan just continues to be industrialized, and then the atomic bomb and Godzilla,
and then Akira.
Yeah, so we see what the distant future of Princess Mononoke is going to look like. Not great, Bob.
Anything else you wanted to add?
I just wanted to talk.
Get in there.
I just wanted to talk about
sexy.
the obvious connections to video games. Not only Breath of the Wild, which we'll get into,
And Tears of the Kingdom.
yes, but another very famous and very well-renowned Miyazaki, the one who is in charge of From Software, has taken a ton of inspiration for games like Elden Ring, from not only Princess Mononoke. There's a ton of characters like Elden Beast, the final boss of the game, looks very similar to the Nightwalker with like all like the stars and stuff inside of it.
That's cool.
And I only know that from watching you play it. And so when
Yeah.
that popped up, I was like, hey, John! That's that fucking guy! That's that Elden Ring!
But also things like Howl's Moving Castle, like there are actual literal moving monuments that exist in this universe. But you can definitely see all like Torrent, the mount that you ride in Elden Ring, is very similar to the mount in this movie. So like there's a ton of like little like subtle pieces that they take. Because I mean, obviously, the background works were written by George R. R. Martin for that game, but the actual like the filling of the universe to make it how it was all Miyazaki and his team from Software. So you could definitely tell that they are big fans of Ghibli and all that sort of stuff. But Breath of the Wild, I mean, it like down to the fact that as the character of Link, you are basically attempting to connect with these different societies that all feel like have been failed by like the central government and are like fighting back against like this like natural oppressor. The fact that the ending boss is this like giant angry boar that is like
covered in demon malice and as the game calls it,
and is
so
also
gross, those like worms, the way they do the demon stuff in this,
and those things I noticed today we're playing Tears of the Kingdom. There's different kind of evil, but it's like that, and I was like, holy shit. And in the new one, Link has a fucked up arm. It's like a black arm, and I was like, dude, this is crazy.
Shit.
Like it's still pulling from Mononoke. It's pretty crazy.
And also the forest spirits, the little guys. I mean, those are obviously directly translated into Koroks, because they're also kind of just that little territory between cute and creepy. But yeah, there's a ton of different like connections. Like I said, you could go down to just the fact that all of the characters around Link have to be convinced to like try to come together in harmony in order to help protect the land of Hyrule.
I mean, even the fact that it's a kid from a small village going to help a princess.
Yeah,
I would say even if you just took the opening scene of Mononoke and you just made Ashitaka's hair blonde, the way he's dressed, the bow and arrow, like the way that he fights and everything, it straight up could just be like the opening of an opening scene of Breath of the Wild. Like because I knew there were similarities, but it's been long enough since I played Breath of the Wild. But as soon as I started this movie and saw the outfit he was wearing and saw like his fighting style and everything, and then obviously like the way the world is designed, that kind of cool mixture between nature and industry that is also heavily present in Breath of the Wild. That like when I played Breath of the Wild, I was like, oh, this is a cool new development for like the Zelda world. And now I'm just realizing that they just bit from really the best place to bite from. Like honestly, if you want to have a gorgeous, well realized world, like I would rather you studied this than tried to make everything, especially if you're doing ancient stuff, like instead of trying to make everything look like dull, gray, boring, medieval, like dark, whatever. It's like throw 550 fucking colors in there and make everything pop, and it can still be creepy but also like gorgeous. And I think that's the really cool thing about animation is and the way that it's obviously like executed in these movies is it's something else. It's hard to describe just how, I don't know, fascinated by the stuff I am.
Are there any other games that you noticed that may have inspired this, or other properties?
I'm sure there are more. It would be tough to sit down and try to like get down to like those really small details, but I just know, like I said, specifically that Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild, and then obviously now having played several hours of Tears of the Kingdom, that it is continuing that same trend of taking directly from this film and adapting it in a way that makes it fun to play.
It's another one of those movies that we always end up talking about where it has branched out and inspired so much, and it's cool to see what could possibly be the origin of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's why I think it's insane that now Japanese animation has a lot more respect than it did even a few years ago, but that it doesn't have even more reverence and respect in American culture. I think it's because so many people took their inspiration from these movies that we've been talking about and maybe in an offhand interview mentioned it, but it's not like they went around parading while they were promoting Terminator or Avatar or whatever and saying like, but first go watch this movie. And it's like, no, it's okay to take inspiration from those things, but at least like give them be vocal about it. Give the credit so that people know to go check that stuff out, because the fact that we're just now coming around, some of the stuff I knew, like Akira inspired a bunch of this stuff, and same with this, but just the amount of stuff we're seeing that's inspired, and even going into what we're going to be talking about next week, there's straight up a Natalie Portman movie that is kind of just a ripoff of this movie. Like,
oh really?
Yeah,
you'll find out.
You'll know when you watch it. But there's just so much of this animation was formative for a lot of our directors and artists in the United States, and I think it's
because it's a work of art, and these directors making live action stuff are artists and to the same degree. So it's beautiful.
Yeah, and to me, art is just all about remixing your influences and making them your own. So it's like you don't have to be ashamed of biting off of them as long as you're not copying word for word or cell for cell. But if you're taking ideas and aesthetics and things like that, like give them the credit and say, hey, I love your thing so passionately and so much. And also just the fact that we have so much access that I can literally just pull up and say, oh, this thing is streaming on HBO. This, when
they have a lot of the Ghibli stuff.
Yeah, most of these directors probably had to get like bootleg, Japanese VHSs and stuff. I think Gendy in that interview was talking about how like he grew up on a lot of Japanese animation, and that a lot of it he had to get not legally because there's no way to get it back in the day.
Well, it's like now every year Fathom Events does that nationwide month where they play all of the Ghibli films in theaters, and so like you could pay to go watch it on the biggest screen possible. And
I think they even do like the dub and the sub.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm down for that. I would love to go see this in theater.
Yeah, I would be very excited, and I'm a massive Ghibli fan. I'm a massive Ghibli fan.
I'm a massive Ghibli flan.
Got my little soot sprites right here. Little soot sprites. But yeah, so do we want to talk about what we're going to be chatting about next week?
Sure, hit us with it.
Yeah, so for next week, we are hitting you with another 1997 release. This one is directed by Satoshi Kon, and it is called Perfect Blue.
This is one that you recommended, right?
Yes.
And have you seen this?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so
it's highly regarded as, yet again, one of the best anime movies ever made. It's very adult.
Okay. This is on Shudder if you're looking to stream it, at least the last time I checked.
Yeah, it looks like it's also potentially available on Amazon. I don't know whether that's to stream or rent, but shouldn't be too difficult to find. And check it out.
If you need my Shudder login, just let me know.
Don't let Shudder hear that. They probably don't care. They're just like, fuck it.
All right, so that's what we're going to do next week. We hope that you enjoyed this. If you haven't already, please check out our bonus episode where we talked about Knock at the Cabin. And next week, we're talking about Little Shop of Horrors for that. Excited. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for checking this out, and we will see you next week. I've been Tone.
I've been John.
And I've been your, say it with me now, Internet Daddy.
Internet Daddy.
Anthony.
I hate it, though. I do hate it.
And that's why I love it.
Keep it creepy. The podcast is over.
Keep it daddy.